This CPU can do everything, and it may just unlock a world of possibilities we never thought possible with an AMD XQ chip. It's fast, it's powerful, and if I'm reading this right, it only has a TDP of 65 watts, which means this is possible. This is the new Ryzen 7 9700X, and not only are we gonna tell you all about it, we're gonna showcase it in a build that you are not going to believe. And it all happens right here, right now on Robeytech. The Ryzen 9000 series desktop CPUs are finally here, and we are incredibly excited to see what AMD has been cooking up at a low temperature. We just gave you a sneak peek at the new Zen 5 architecture in our review of the Asus ZenBook S16, which we're pretty impressed about, and you can check out right here with our first look. And now we get a look at the desktop versions in all of their majesty. We have both the Ryzen 5 9600X and Ryzen 7 9700X in the studio today, but we're gonna be focusing this video on the 9700X. Don't worry, we'll sprinkle in some 9600X and know it's gonna get its day in the sun, even if it's currently hissing at the sun while clawing at the air. Let's get to know the 9700X a bit more, starting with the price. At launch, the Ryzen 7 9700X has an MSRP of $359.99, which is actually $40 less than the launch price of the Ryzen 7 7700X 2 years ago. This is a great direction to see prices go, and we give a huge thumbs up to AMD on that already. As the successor to the 7700X, the 9700X is an 8-core, 16-thread CPU that sits in the middle of the Ryzen 9000 product stack. While the 9700X does have a slightly lower base frequency, it has a higher boost frequency and a significantly lower TDP. According to AMD, efficiency is the name of the Ryzen 9000 series game. But before you hear efficiency as a code word for has worse performance than a middle school musical, that's not what we're talking about at all. We're talking about wider dispatch and execution pipelines, improved cache and cache bandwidth, improved branch prediction accuracy, more predictions per cycle, more parallel processes, and improved and unified schedule, and more. AMD has also improved their AVX 512 data path, which can improve performance in gaming, content creation, applications, and AI workflows. Is it all marketing hype? Did we just spout a lot of technobabble? Well, let's find out. So right out of the gate, we've noticed that the 9700X is keeping AMD's ambition of pushing performance per watt alive and well. When we looked at the average wattage of the 9700X, it's not even close to its competitors under full CPU and while gaming. On the other hand, we did see idle at a higher wattage than Intel's 14th gen CPUs. Keep in mind that all the Zen 5 cores on this CPU are alike. There's no E cores or Zen 5C cores here, so this does make sense. Under load, the 9700X had a CPU watt average of 87.61 watts, while its predecessor, the 7700X, averaged 131. The new Ryzen 9600X wasn't far behind the new Ryzen at 87.49 watts. When we look across the aisle over at Intel, the Core i7-14700K averaged 236.29 watts. Even the Core i5-14600K had a CPU watt average of 178.13. As for gaming, we saw a surprisingly similar story for the 9700X, a CPU watt average of 87.61. Yes, you actually heard that number twice. It's freaky weird, but we double-checked the data, and yes, in both cases, it's 87.61. Now, the 9600X had an ever so slightly lower power draw at 84.98. As for the 7700X, it averaged 103, while the 14600K averaged 121, and the Core i7-14700K averaged 166. Those are some pretty massive differences. Now, you may be looking at this and thinking, Robey, 88 watts is much higher than 65 watts. What happened to the 65 watt TDP? Is AMD lying to us about power? Not so fast, but your confusion isn't unfounded. TDP, or thermal design power, is the metric AMD uses to measure thermal output under normal operations, but it's not the same as max socket power, or PPT. Thanks to this handy post on AMD's forums and AMD's master software, we saw that the actual PPT is 88 watts, which is what we're seeing in our benchmarks. Just a quick aside here, while we're on the topic, the generational difference between the 7700X and the 9700X in PPT is 54 watts, which is no small amount of power to drop. Now, back to the performance data. When it comes to thermals, the 9700X was remarkably, and I do mean remarkably cool, all things considered. We saw idle temperatures at 39 degrees Celsius, CPU load temperatures, guys, wait for this, 54 degrees, and gaming temperatures actually slightly higher, which is weird, at 55 degrees. Comparatively, the 14700K was 30 degrees C at idle, 83 degrees C under load, and 65 degrees C while gaming. The 14600K averaged 30 C at idle, 80 C under load, and 59 degrees Celsius while gaming. And the 7700X, it was 41 degrees at idle, 95 degrees under load, and 71 degrees Celsius while gaming. That is bonkers. 55 degrees, man, that's crazy. Power consumption and thermals are great, but how does this all translate into actual performance? In gaming, this thing is an absolute monster. In Cyberpunk 2077, we saw an average of 220 frames per second for the 9700X. In Forza Horizon 5, we had 337 frames per second. In Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, 426 frames per second. In Shadow of the Tomb Raider, 301 frames per second. And finally, in Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, 488 frames per second. Keep in mind, these numbers were collected at 1080p, pushing the highest possible frame rate to drive CPU usage. And this doesn't even represent every single game ever made. But when we look across the charts, the 9700X just ran away to win our benchmarks. I mean, it's so nice during the Olympics, this would have gotten the gold. And in most cases, even the performance of the flagship 14900K was not even close. So I'd be remiss not to mention this, but obviously the higher you go up in resolution, the less your CPU begins to matter. So if you're gaming at 1440p or 4K, the 9700X is still gonna be an incredible thing to pair with your GPU, but your GPU is gonna be pushing way more of those frames, and you may not see the boost at that level that you will see, which we're intentionally pushing here with the 1080p benchmarks we just showed. But this is actually only one side of the Zen 5 story. When we started to branch out from gaming to test multi-core and multi-threaded operations, things looked fine at the start. But the more we got beyond 2 cores and 4 hardware threads, the more we started to see performance plateau instead of steadily increasing the more we got along. It's almost like AMD and Intel switched places, where now AMD is the new single thread leader and Intel is leading in multi-core. Now, to be clear, this isn't new news. The 7700X also trailed behind multi-core performance back when it was released. And when we look across our test results, we found that the 9700X multi-core performance was still an improvement over the 7700X, but not by as much as we'd hoped for. But also remember, this is very important, all of these tests were done at 88 watts, as compared to Intel's 253 watts, and without any overclocking. With the thermal overhead we're seeing in the 9700X, there's a lot of room to play with AMD's Precision Boost Overdrive or just overclocking in general. So again, this is up to you if you want to play and actually push it beyond then, and it feels like the possibility is definitely there. Now, to make this even more weird, we saw a far bigger jump in the 9600X's multi-core, multi-thread performance over the 7600X. All we can figure is that the 9600X is drawing the same amount of power as the 9700X, but it has fewer cores, so those cores in theories may be getting more power. Now you might be asking, Robey, where's the X3D data and all of this stuff? Guys, we only had so much time with these chips, and unfortunately, we only had so much that we could test. We are absolutely going to test these against the 7800X 3D, but from what we've seen from the internet, actually this does actually outperform the X3D in certain game cases, and even AMD talked about that as well. But we'll have more videos on that in the future. Now we'll talk more about the 9600X, just like we'll talk more about comparisons with the 7800X 3D in another video. But what does this all mean for the 9700X? Well, for right now, we don't actually have the whole story on Ryzen 9000 series, so it means that we have a lot more questions right now than we have answers to. There are 2 more Ryzen processors with also rumored X3D processors for us to check out, and really it's going to be the Ryzen 9s. They're going to tell us what we need to know when it comes to multi-core performance. So if you need a CPU for high compute scenarios, you may want to wait and see what the new Ryzen 9 CPUs can actually do. Also, this could change after release. Remember, we've had these samples for about a week, and we're testing these on pre-release biases, so there's no telling what uplifts and improvements we could see as it matures. And that's, guys, I'm gonna diatribe here for a second, but that's what I hate about reviews on brand new release products, because these things will mature over time, and anybody who says that this is the definitive review 1 week after it releases is full of poop. But right now, going back, if you're trying to choose if you want to get one of these now, if you're using your system for gaming and productivity work, the Ryzen 7 9700X is absolutely crushing tasks in the 1 to 2 core kind of range and the 1 to 4 hardware thread utilization lane. And with that second part in mind, it only makes sense for us to do what we do best. It's like the PB&J of Robeytech. It's time to talk a PC build, because that's what we do around here. So we threw together a parts list for a beautiful gaming PC that falls just a few dollars over $1,500. You might even be able to get it even cheaper if you catch a few sales, or if you're one of those lucky people who live near a micro center, which Sadly, we do not. And not only is this thing no slouch, it's going to look extra amazing inside of the Fantex XT Pro Ultra because it's got RGB fans included. So we have a full parts list down in the description, and we'll show you the parts list right here on the screen. But here are a few highlights as the parts that we paired with our Ryzen 7 9700X. We have the ASRock B650E Phantom Gaming Riptide motherboard, 1 terabyte of NVMe storage, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and PNY's Verdo OC NVIDIA RTX 4070 Super. And if you aren't familiar with PNY, you should check out our deep dive on what makes them so special right here. And so what does $1,500 get you as far as performance? A machine that is anything but mid, and you better believe we have the benchmarks to back that claim up. This time we cranked everything up to max settings at 1440p, and this thing ran Cyberpunk 2077 at an average of over 139 frames per second, Forza Horizon 5 averaged 188 frames per second, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 averaged 206 frames per second at max settings, and 402 FPS when we tuned settings down for competitive play. In Shadow of the Tomb Raider, our 9700X PC averaged 287 frames per second, and finally in Tiny Tina Wonderland, it averaged 180 frames per second. Those are some absolutely incredible numbers for that price. And with AMD's support of the AM5 platform to 2027 and beyond, a machine like this could be a fantastic platform for the long haul. Now, before we close this whole video out, there's one more thing that we absolutely have to mention that this CPU absolutely excites us with. With its lower TDP, which again deals with heat that can impact your performance, we have a CPU that is a main series chip that can not only survive but thrive in a small form factor build like the Terra right here. This is not just conjecture here. We actually tested the 9700X with the Be Quiet Pure Rock LP, a low profile CPU cooler designed for compact mini ITX builds. While we saw an ever so slight difference in CPU clock speed averages, the temperature averaged 85 degrees Celsius under full CPU load. Keep in mind that's a whole 10 degrees away from TJ Maxx, and that means that there's some room to play on a small form factor PC. Now we're gonna link a few SFF builds below that also hover in the $1,500 price range, but like our showcase system, this is more of a guide than a blueprint. Now at the end of the day, the Ryzen 7 9700X showed us that you can get solid gaming performance at a low power draw and at a lower price too. Those are our initial thoughts on the Ryzen 7 9700X. There's still a lot more to learn about Zen 5, and we can't wait to see what AMD has in store as this platform matures. We want to give a huge shout out to AMD for giving us the opportunity to check this CPU out, as well as the others in the Ryzen 9000 family. Make sure you stick around for our impressions on the rest of the series right here at Robeytech. In the meantime, we want to hear from you. What do you think about the new Ryzen 7's performance? And are there possibilities the CPU opens up that you didn't even think you could do? Let us know down in the comments below. Now while you're down there, make sure you slap that subscribe button, whip that like button, and ring that notification bell so that you get a notification each and every time we post a video like this right here in Robeytech. Also, if you want to continue the conversation about what might be the best Ryzen 9000 series build or PC building in general, head over to our Discord server, discord.gg/Robeytech. Amazing place to meet other like-minded tech and PC enthusiasts who'd love to continue this conversation about these brand new CPUs. And you know what? You might just make a friend. Also, make sure you follow us at Robeytech absolutely everywhere. Thank you so much for watching this video, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.